Welcome to the September 23rd, 2021 meeting of the Town of Southampton Planning Board. Due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, in accordance with Chapter 417 of the laws of 2021 and until January 15th, 2022, all of the board's meetings will be held remotely via video conference. So we ask the public to continually check the town's website for updates and new information. Please join for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America
and
to the republic
for which it stands, one nation,
under God, indivisible,
with
with
liberty.
liberty and justice for all.
All. Do we have a roll call, Florian, please? You're muted. You're muted. There you go.
Okay, Chair LaFaro,
Present.
Vice Chair Finnerty,
Present.
Secretary is here, Board Member Catalinato,
Present?
Board Member Long,
Present.
Board Member Zuccarelli.
Present.
We have a full board, we have a quorum.
Thank you. We have 5 public hearings this evening. We have applicants and members of the public standing by via Zoom webinar, which is being moderated by CTV. Charles Certain will be muting and holding the speakers in a virtual waiting room until it's their time to give testimony before the board. A reminder that applicants, agents, and members of the public speaking should state their name and address for the record. A further reminder that despite the Zoom environment, all comments should be directed to the board and not to other participants. The link to participate in this meeting via Zoom can be found on the town's website. The meeting is being live streamed on the town's website on the town clerk's meeting portal. If you're having difficulty accessing the meeting, please visit the town clerk's meeting portal and click on the instructions link. Public comments can be made via Zoom, by email, or by uploading them to the town clerk's portal on the planning board's page. You'll see on that page a button you can click to upload your comments. Please do not use the Zoom chat function to register your comments. Any comments made via chat function will not be included nor made part of the record. Instead, you may either speak at the hearing or submit your comments in writing after the hearing. Board members who must recuse themselves for any application will state so on the record and will be removed from the meeting until the end of the hearing. Additionally, in accordance with the legislation, these hearings will be recorded and transcribed and made available to the public at a later date. So our first item is North Lot LLC. Do we have notice, council?
We have proper notice, Madam Chair.
Okay, I will read this into the record. Hearing will be held in the Southampton Town Planning Board on Thursday, September 23rd, 2021 at 6 p.m. prevailing time, excuse me, at the Southampton Town Hall, 116 Hampton Road, Southampton, New York, to consider the pre-application entitled North Lot LLC. The application is for a planned residential development cluster conservation opportunity subdivision of North Lot LLC, which proposes 50% reduction in permissible yield from 9 lots to a 4-lot subdivision of a vacant 18.994 acre farmland parcel, of which 17.049 acres or 90% of the land areas is to be preserved as open space farmland situated in the CR 80 zoning district, agricultural overlay district, and water quality improvement area, high priority, located at 141 Deerfield Road in Watermill, Suffolk County tax map 900-101-216 by order of the Planning Board of the Town of Southampton, Gloria Burke, Secretary. Okay, who is representing this application? Matt, do we know?
Should be Inner Science. They're raising their hand.
Yeah, they're already in. They're coming in.
Okay. Pretty visual.
You're on.
Hi, Jim, you're on. Can you give us your name for the record?
James L. Walker from InterScience, 36 Nugent Street in Southampton. Jackie, if it's all right with the board, I'll cut right to the chase. This is a project that I started in 2002. And I believe you were on the planning board at that time, Jackie. I'm not 100% certain, but I see your name in the old file. So you and Dennis may remember this project.
I
We're the
remember.
oldies.
What's that?
We're the oldies.
Yeah.
The property owner was Ray Halsey at the time. This is the Halsey family. It's the Green Thumb Halseys. And Billy Halsey is the primary person that I speak to in the Halsey family. There are 3 others, Larry Halsey and Joanne Storch, and the other daughter, I can never remember her name, so you'll have to forgive me for that. But the idea is we are asking the board for 4 lots. There are 4 families. There are a series of grandchildren who would like to live on this property. And Billy came to me and asked for 1/2 acre lots by the road. Now, why would you put 1/2 acre lots down by the road? Initially, it's to soften the cost. The driveway installation is less. But also the tax repercussions for the 4 grandchildren who will live in these 4 lots will be less than if they were full 1 acre lots. So the idea is to create housing for William Halsey, Larry Halsey, Joanne Storch, and 4th daughter's children. They're working this farm right now. If you go there, I've been there several times to post the property and whatnot, take pictures. You will see them running the tractors, and it's an organic farm. So part of the challenges that we had when Ray Halsey was still alive was jacking the water underneath the railroad tracks. And that was going to be an expensive proposition, and that and some other considerations were the reason why the project went away. I think I quit working on this particular project for the Halsey family in 2004. So when it came back in, I told Larry, we'll start the process. I'm going to give the planning board a bare bones 4-lot sketch, and we'll see what they have to say. I have not returned to community preservation fund at all. I know Lisa Combrink personally because my son played baseball with her son. So I probably will, but the idea is we have to figure out if we can get this 4-lot subdivision done and install public water. And the ball game changed. So the ball game at Suffolk County Water Authority, it's now called the Deerfield Surcharge Area. And just so the board knows, the Halsey family has to pay $13,478 times 8. 4 lots that will belong to each one of the Halsey grandchildren, but also 4 existing lots, some of which are people that I know personally. And typically what would happen is when we're proposing water main extensions, it used to be we would try to get the local area enthusiastic about sharing the cost. I did have William Halsey send out letters to those 4 property owners, and we didn't hear from them. So in all practical terms, we have to come up with $107,000 for a water main extension before we get started with the project. We also have to come up with $3,200 for each of the 4 lots. So that's another $13,000 that the Halsey family has to come up with. So the idea would be, if the planning board is encouraging and the planning board pushes the project along, is my next step would be to go see Lisa Combrink and see if the town was still interested in buying the development rights off the portion of the property to offset the cost of the water main. And basically that's it, Jackie.
Mhm.
Happy to answer.
We haven't had a conservation opportunity subdivision in a long time. You know, they're always admirable because of the preservation of the land. It's the first time I'm hearing about this Deerfield Water District or,
Deerfield surcharge area, and I spoke to the guy, Stephen Huber is the guy, the engineer at the Water Authority, and I called him today, and he called me back just before 5. And I'm absolutely certain 13,478 times 8 and 3,200 times 4 is the hard cost.
120,000, yeah. So it's a
That's hard.
Suffolk County Water Authority, right?
Yeah, and it has to be jacked underneath the road. And to tell you the truth, the cost in 2004 were even more substantial because the Halsey family was gonna have to pay for the whole thing. And jacking a water main underneath a railroad tracks is a sizable accomplishment. But now that they have the Deerfield surcharge area, the costs are quantified, they're precise.
Mhm.
And I'm pretty sure if we go into contract with the Water Authority, I know what the hard costs are to the Halsey family. And to get this job done and provide 4 small lots for 4 farming families and preserve the rest of the property and use it the way it's being used right now, which is for organic vegetables. I would have to go see Lisa Combrink and start the process with the
CPF.
because the CPF again. So what we're really looking for, I told Anthony when I submitted this thing that I was going to submit it bare bones with a yield plan done to it by this office and a subdivision plan done by Squires and Holden, and that's what you have in front of you. And unless I'm told otherwise, I'm going to go see Lisa Combrink and start the process of trying to negotiate with the CPF so that the Halsey family can afford to do the project. And that's basically it.
Hey, Jim, there's a movement afoot, and I'm actually going to be a participant approaching the town board to draft a water extension plan, primarily for the North Sea, but North Watermill area, which has underserved or has zero. This revolves around fire protection, to undertake a study and possibly entertain a special assessment district where the entire area, including North Watermill, North Sea, would be serviced by public water. I'm not saying, you know how government works. You're talking about a 2 to 3 year timeline horizon, and I'm sure they want to get this underway. But
that is in all practical terms, subdivisions take about 3 years to get approved.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
through the health department and through the planning board and through the county and whatnot.
Good.
These people have been sitting on this land for a while, and we're almost ready to bite the bullet in 2004. So we can start the process, period, in any case.
Okay.
We don't have to pay for the water main extension.
Yeah, I was going to say, don't write any checks until, and we'll see. It's good to know, because I know the family, and we may have some additional allies in this.
Yeah, it's one house lot for each of the 4 families, so it's kind of equitable and nice. And working for the Halsey family is something that we did for a very long time. And Ray Halsey and Peachy were always fun to work for and very pleasant people to deal with. So that part is fine. And Larry and Billy mostly have been taking care of the family stuff since that time. And I think we have to give you some LLC documentation. And Anthony asked for a few other things, which we'll start to do. But if it's all just the same with the planning board, I think we'll try to encourage the Halsey family and go see the CPF people and start that process right now and see how far down the road we can get, hopefully to get the project over the goal line.
Great. Is there anyone in the public who'd like to speak to the application?
See no hands.
Okay, anybody else on the board?
Just a question and a comment. I'm assuming that the idea of getting a feedback from us on the the development is so that you can go to Lisa and start having that conversation.
I wasn't part of Ray Halsey's negotiations with Mary Wilson at the time. I do not know how to do it. If the planning board wants to send over a note to Lisa Combring, that probably would be very helpful. I do know her personally.
That's why.
My son and her son both pitched on the same team. So,
I'm friends with her daughter-in-law.
they're both going to school for engineering, and they're both pitching. So Gabe Camacho was her son, and I think his nickname was the Asian Sensation. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. And my son is going to school in Utica, and he's pitching this fall. So very exciting. And I would have lots of stuff to talk to Lisa about anyway. So,
But Jim, the development rights are intact, right? They have not sold development rights on this property.
they haven't sold it. Ray said no, and we put the project away. And then Larry brought it back 20 years
Okay.
later, more or less. That's the way it sits. Larry and Billy, their children are of the age they need housing in Watermill to stay
Their
here.
water supply now is from wells, pretty much. They're operating,
All the houses in that area have wells.
they all have wells.
And some of those people we also know. Cindy Corwith is my son's gym teacher, and the Noonans played softball with me for 25 years. We know these people well, but I think it's different than it was in 2002. We're not talking about paying for the whole cost of jacking underneath the railroad tracks. We are talking about a kind of an appropriated cost based on how the Water Authority thought it would be equitable to bill people as the water main got installed underneath the railroad.
Understand. Well, maybe
Right,
this project will help.
My comment on the CPF is that they're incredibly flush with money. So this is not a bad time to raise your hand and ask for some of it.
And the planning board can help by sending Lisa a note, and maybe that comes from the current planning division. But in any case, the next step from InterScience would be go to see Lisa Combring.
Okay, so no one speaking and no more comments. Entertain a motion.
I just have one question actually directed to Kathleen. Is it appropriate for the planning board to send a recommendation like this over to CPF?
It's appropriate for the planning board to ask that, the CPF manager will absolutely meet on this application. So I don't know that it's necessary, but we can certainly ask that, the CPF department meet with the applicant, but that will happen.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, a motion to close with a 10-day written comment period by Gloria, second by Dennis. All in favor? Opposed, abstention, 6 in favor. Thank you, Jim.
Take it easy. Thanks.
They will.
Okay, coming up is 917 West Main LLC.
We have proper notice, Madam Chair.
Great. Okay, Matt, you're going to read this into the record?
I will. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, notice of pre-submission conference. Please take notice that in accordance with the town code of the town of Southampton, a pre-submission conference will be held by the Southampton Town Planning Board on Thursday, September 23rd, 2021 at 6 p.m. prevailing time, Southampton Town Hall at 116 Hampton Road, Southampton, New York, to consider the pre-submission application entitled 917 West Main Street. The site plan special exception application proposes the construction of a 6,000 square foot building and associated parking for special trade contractor use on a 50,786 square foot parcel situated in the LI 40 zoning district located at 1 Windmere Court, Remsenburg, Speonk, Suffolk County Tax Map number 900-353-1-24.7 by order of the Planning Board of the Town of Southampton. Gloria Burke, Secretary.
Thanks, Matt. Do we know who is representing the application?
Should be Andrew Graham, I believe. Now we'll share a screen. Talking about.
Charles, do you see an Andrew Graham?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Is he coming in? There he is, yeah.
Actually in.
Yep. Okay, good. Matt, do you want to give us an overview? Matt, you're muted. Hi, Mr. Graham. Just 1 second. We're looking for Matt.
Do you need me, Jackie?
Yeah, do you want to give an overview of this?
I thought the applicant would, provide an update of, just.
Oh, okay, just hang around.
Sure.
Andrew, do you want to give us an overview of the application?
Yeah, so it's my client, the owner is 917 West Main, but it's Star Tent. They're like a large tent manufacturer. They provide the tent for the Parish Art Museum this summer, if you happen to see it. But they're looking to build a storage building for the tents for the off season. One of the issues we noticed that Anthony pointed out when we submitted this was that the parking lot actually goes into the buffer. There's a preservation buffer there. We're going to change that. That wasn't intentional. We plan to respect the buffer, and I guess the other thing is that we showed a conventional septic system, but we're required to do an IA system. So my client retained an engineer to design that. And outside of that, my client's just looking to match the existing structures on Windermere Court. Typical steel buildings with 3 or 4 foot stone facade. I think that's generally it.
An apron, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. We usually like to get a bit more articulation on the building architecturally.
Okay.
So it doesn't look like a standard Butler building. So
Will this building be heated?
Yes.
What kind of, do you plan on putting solar or any energy conservation?
I don't know really that my client has thought that far. I think they planned on, I think they were going to heat it with gas, or LP tanks. I don't know if they were considering solar or not. It may be an option for them. Because they want less maintenance since they're based up in New Rochelle, so they don't want to have to come down and let someone in to refill any tanks. So they are considering electric heat. So solar might be an option for them.
Lauren, there are a lot of very large trees in the area right across the street from North Phillips Road there. That's preserved land from the town. A lot of mature trees, and the east-west sun. I don't know if they're going to get an awful lot on the roof line.
Well, they certainly, a good solar company can just actually go on Google Maps and get a pretty good sense before you go any further. So, and
sounds like an option.
Yeah,
Wherever
it's
it can
a
happen.
good idea.
And you may think about geothermal instead of electric heat. But you still use the electric to pump the water, but that may be just, I don't know the cost between the two, but just, we're trying to really try, as new buildings come in, we'd love to see us get away from the traditional ways we heat and cool. So it's just a suggestion to look at.
I'll definitely run it by them. I'm not sure of the cost difference between geothermal and solar, but
I have no idea. So
yeah, but if it's an option for them, I'll definitely throw it out there.
and I'm just asking to take a look at it. Thank you.
Is there anyone who wants to speak to this application? Anybody in the public?
No hands.
Any more comments from the planning board?
Yeah, Andrew, you're going to keep it consistent with the rest of the buildings around there. And by the way, I'm sitting about 1,000 feet away from that lot right now, so you know.
That's the idea. They want it to basically look like the rest of the block in there. So
Okay, yeah.
I think there's a building directly across the street I don't know the number, but they want it to look just like that building.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, for an industrial park, which that's what it is, small industrial park.
Yeah.
It looks fantastic, which is probably testament to this
It-
board and
It
planning.
does.
I mean,
Yeah.
it looks
Yeah.
great. Really looks great.
We had to butt a few heads to get, especially the one across the street. We had a little robust discussion about that architecture.
Oh, really? I think it looks fantastic.
That's why at the end it does, but it didn't come from the applicant.
That's why Craig is thanking us.
I get it. I
You
get
could
it.
use a thank you after today.
Right. Of
Thank you,
course.
Craig.
Sure.
If there are no other comments, we can have a written comment period for 10 days. Close.
Is this
It's a pre-submission, yeah.
pre-submission
Oh,
30 days?
pre-submission, so it's 30 days, yeah.
30
So,
days.
so 30-day written comment period by Dennis, second by
Second,
Gloria, and all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 6 in favor. Thank you very much.
you.
The next is Star Aqua Center.
We have proper notice, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And Craig, do you want to read it into the record?
I will read it in. Notice of pre-submission conference. Please take notice that in accordance with town code of the town of Southampton, a pre-submission conference will be held by the Southampton Town Planning Board on Thursday, September 23rd, 2021 at 6 p.m. prevailing time at Southampton Town Hall, 116 Hampton Road, Southampton, New York, to consider the pre-submission application entitled Star Aqua Center. The subject project is for a site plan application for construction of a community pool recreational area when authorized by municipality on 2 town-owned parcels totaling 6.3 acres located in the R20 zoning district, located at 344 McGee Street, Hamlet of Southampton, Suffolk County Tax Map number 900-158-3, 19, 2, and 20. By order of the Planning Board of the Town of Southampton, Gloria Burke, Secretary. In the event of a cancellation of this meeting, this application without further notice will be heard the next Planning Board meeting, Jackie LaFaro, Chairperson.
Okay, so we have, who is speaking to the application?
Jackie, it's Tim Rump from Aris Design and Steve Naroda.
Excellent. Okay, it's all yours.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, board members, council, and members of the public who may be interested in this application. My name is Tim Rump, president of Aris Design, and we're landscape architects for the project. We're located at 38 Nugent Street, Southampton, New York, 11968. Joining me also is my senior associate, Steve Naroda, as well as Tony Panza, who's a partner in Rogers McCagg Architects, who are the architects for the project. As we move forward, Aris will discuss the existing site and the proposed site plan, and Tony will conclude our presentation with his discussion of the proposed floor plans and preliminary building elevations. The site is approximately 6.3 acres in size and located in the hamlet of Tuckahoe. The street address is 344 McGee Street. The site was bought by the town with CPS funds several years ago and is the former site of an independent group home living, quote, day school, which was built approximately 20 years ago. The IGHL people would bus their clients from their group homes in the town to this facility and go through, teaching and therapy and bus them back to their homes at the end of the day. If you look at our existing conditions plan, which was before, I don't know who's running. Is that you, Matt?
Yeah, Tim, do you guys want to share screen?
Sure, that'd be great.
Great for me.
should I say?
Yes.
So this is our existing conditions plan over the top of a recent aerial. You'll see the area which previously been disturbed, which is approximately 3 acres. You'll see there the existing setbacks in various colors for the site. And we do also do a kind of a sun and wind diagram to really acclimate ourselves to what's going on the site.
We turn that off and turn that on, it looks better.
Okay.
The proposed site plan, which is the next plan that Steve will show us, depicts an approximate 29,000 square foot footprint of the Aqua Center itself, as well as this big vehicular and pedestrian circulation. This plan depicts approximately 160 parking spaces for vehicles and buses. You'll notice the access off of McGee Street, which is up in the on the left-hand side of the site, is through a 50-foot access strip that had been created back when the subdivision of this parcel was done. We're doing this to provide one curb cut onto McGee Street for this site, as well as any future development that may happen up with the parcels up on County Route 39. The Star Aqua Center Board has talked right from the beginning of the development of this site about using all of the sustainable criteria that the town has within their code. And briefly, we're looking at permeable paving, reduced drainage, reduced heat island effect, the use of bioswales for site drainage, the use of native plantings throughout the site, solar assisted site lighting, and all of those things as well for the site. And Tony will get into a little bit of what we plan to do with the building. At this point, I'll ask Tony to kind of go into the floor plans and the elevations.
Steve, I think you could stay on the site just for a moment.
Sure.
Just a few other items about the site. Good evening. Tony Panza, Turtle Pond Road, Southampton, New York, with Rogers McCagg Architects. Once the images come back up,
Stop share real quick. Sorry, I'm gonna stop share real quick, Tony. Sorry about that.
Click on this, you silly man. It's clicking on the wrong thing.
You want me to share screen, Steve?
Could you, Tony? Sorry, for some reason it froze up on our side.
You have to stop share. Everyone see the screen now?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. So as just a few things about the building that Tim was mentioning, location was rather important in that we wanted to stay away from the residential lots to the east and to the south, preserve as much of the thicket buffer of wooded area which is there, and also still be able to enter in, have a nice presence on the south side of the building. The public spaces or the entry spaces you'll see are located on the south side, so that we can have the pools located on the north side. This is intentional in that we want to have a lot of natural light and we want to bring in north light. We don't want to bring in south light. The heavy glare is not good for competition or for other items, using the pool. This is a first floor plan, and you'll see that there's the first floor is 29,700 square feet as drawn. There's two pools, one pool being the natatorium. This is a 25-yard by 25-meter pool with a diving well. And you'll see on the second floor, there's seating here. So this is intended to be not only a place where people in the community can swim laps, but also local high schools can have competitions. So it's set up for 25-yard, which is what high school and colleges in North America would be competing under. There's a second pool, which we call the warm water activity learn to swim pool. The exact design of that pool hasn't been 100% concluded, but it's a little bit warmer than a natatorium. It runs about 82 degrees, and this would have features for learn to swim. A group could rent the pool. They could have maybe a volleyball match or something. It could be used for parties. So this is meant for every activity that you could think of. Also along the south side there are locker rooms, family changing rooms. There's back of house items, very large entrance with community rooms off of this. So it's intended that when there are meets or if people are having birthday parties, that they could have a community room that would also be used in addition to swimming. And then when we move up to the second floor, which runs about 10,000 square feet, this is just on the south side of the building because the both pools volumes would be double height. And this is set up for it to be a fitness area. And there could be group fitness, possibly physical therapy. In this floor plan here, you can also see a lot of the glass that we've located on the north side. And there would be some high glass on the west side and high glass on the east side. Just getting into some of the exterior elevations, the building height would stay under 32 feet, which is the maximum height for residential. So we're trying to have a residential scale and meet a vernacular for the Southampton area. We don't want this to be a Walmart. And this right here is the entrance, large 2-story entrance with a lot of glass, and then mixes of glass in other locations. I also glanced over, there's ample area when I was talking about the viewing, which would be here if you're watching a competition. So you could be viewing from within the natatorium, but there's also viewing that would be set up outside of the natatorium. So as you drop off children, the parents could be there watching, but this is a facility that we would expect to be used from those learning to swim 2, 3, 4 years of age, up to those in master classes, 60, 70, 80, that want to swim some laps, maybe not in the ocean or are not fortunate enough to have a pool. This is a facility for them. There are some further elevations that run into the back. And the main thing is that we're staying under the residential height limit. As Tim had mentioned, the Star Aqua Center board has made this project, has made it the point very emphatic that this is to be an environmentally conscious building, both in how we've laid out the site and how we've been able to use a site, which is where there was previously disturbed. The environmental systems from solar, we have a very large flat roof, which we can put solar on, geothermal, and we are investigating other systems, including cogen, a lot of natural light, obviously, and daylighting systems. That wraps up a quick intro to the site and the architecture. If the board has any questions, we'd be glad to take them.
What is the exterior material?
At this point, it's not 100% finalized, but we're looking at a mixture of, this would be a metal roof, much like the metal roof that you would see at the Parish Art Museum or the new Cancer Center over by 27 and 39. And then the facade being, as much as we would like to have it, this portion of it being wood, we'll probably, just because of cost and material, be able to do something in this area in cedar shingle to represent much of the area, but we will have a composite or a metal siding for the rest of the building.
Tony, could you pull up the site plan again?
Yes.
I applaud your efforts to promote environmental architecture. I'll make my usual pitch for electric charging vehicle stations, where, as you know, they have to be established before the pavement go down to the conduit. They're revenue generators. My feeling is if electric vehicles are going to take off, it's really dependent upon getting a sufficient number of charging stations. And I think municipalities can lead the way. And fortunately, they don't have to be in close proximity to the building. They can be segregated to the far corner of the parking lot. But I would hope the board would maybe think about that. 3 or 4 charging stations, just.
Dennis, I would completely agree. And certainly it's something that the planning board can put in, but I think New York State is already working on that, and relatively soon it's going to be a requirement of permits of structures of certain sizes that you'll be required, just in the same way that you have to put in handicap parking spaces. They'll be requiring charging stations.
Yeah, my concern is the logistics of those stations. They require the underground conduit, which all has to be trenched in before the final lift of asphalt and stuff. So even if you do some pre-planning, throw the appropriate amount of PVC underneath in the subsurface in anticipation of that coming through from the state.
Okay.
But give us some thought if you could.
Well, we may be able to require that as part of our secret process too, Dennis, so it may not have to wait.
Yeah, I know that, but I don't want to jump the gun.
I'm saying it for the audience. And I'd love for you to take a look at how much, if you use how much you can get and how much you need to run your geothermal, because you do have a lot of parking that you could put solar on. That may be an issue for aesthetic purposes, but it's an opportunity. So once you have a better sense of what you'll need to run the facility, that may be another way to bring more electric.
Okay.
Any other presenters before we go to the public?
No, that's it, Jackie, from us.
Okay, great. Someone like to speak to the application? I see Mitch Mayer there.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, I'm Mitch Mayer, 47 Leo's Lane in the village of Southampton. Thank you, Planning Board, for allowing me to speak in favor of this project. I can't tell you how excited I am. A couple of points I'd like to make, if I may. I was an ocean lifeguard for 45 years, and when I did the arithmetic with a friend of mine, I had, let's say, approximately 1,000 ocean rescues in my career. Now, would those 1,000 people have all drowned? Of course not, but some of them would. There were many people that I pulled out from under the water by their hair or by their arm, and pretty much 100% of these people couldn't swim. So let me start with that point. When I was a teacher in Southampton Elementary School, we had the opportunity to teach a drown-proofing class to 3rd graders. We did this at the YMCA in East Hampton. And I think most of us would be amazed how many of these kids wouldn't go in the pool, had never been in a pool, had never been in an open body of water in their life. So I think this is crucially important that we can expose young kids to learn how to swim. The other point I wanted to make is I've been swimming at the YMCA in East Hampton since it was built. A friend of mine was the original aquatic director. And I've seen how that place has become the backbone, one of the backbones of the community, and all the lifelong friendships that I've seen established through the years. It's literally changed people's lives, and it's what a resource. Now my son learned to swim at the YMCA, swam and ended up swimming on a swimming team, and eventually got certified as a lifeguard, which he worked at for a number of years. So I've been going there in the morning, sometimes in the afternoon, sometimes in the evening. And one of the issues I wanted to address is traffic. which is a concern of all of ours. Obviously, the traffic is out of control out here. Since I've been going to the Y 20 odd years, the thing you have to remember is I've never seen, there's a side road that leads to the Y, where the entrance is. I've never seen more than 1, 2, maybe 3 cars on that road at one time, because people don't come en masse. They come one there, and then they leave the same way. Even if there's a swim meet, which I've attended many of, by the time that people shower and they get ready to leave, they're leaving very sporadically. It's really not even an issue as far as adding to the traffic. And the other thing I wanted to conclude with is, I was talking to my wife about it, and if we go to this new building that we're talking about building, we're not going to make a separate trip. We're going to be out and about doing our errands, going to the bank, shopping, whatever, and we'll hit the swimming place as we're out and about. I don't think we're going to add a significant amount of traffic. I know that's a concern of all of ours. I don't think it's going to be a significant problem. So thank you again for listening to us.
Hi, and this is me. I'm Alexis Mayer, same address, 47 Leo's Lane. And the part that I didn't hear mentioned, and I find was my main concern, was I've had so many surgeries, knees, ankles, hands. And back when the Fitness Factory had a pool, I rehabbed in the pool from most of those surgeries. And it was such an easy, comfortable place to do it. So our seniors, many of which need rehabbing for many different things, could find a very comfortable rehab situation. So thank you all. I'm so pleased that this has come up, and I'm really hoping it goes through quickly.
Thank you. Joy Flynn, are you here to speak?
I am. May I?
Sure.
Thank you for letting us speak on this topic. My name is Joy Flynn. I live at 23A Lamb Avenue in Quogue, and I want to express my support for the Star Aqua Center. A town of Southampton's stature deserves an indoor pool to teach young children and adults to swim and to provide opportunity for competitive swimming. The talented swimmers west of the canal deserve the equal opportunity that their peers have who have access to an aquatic facility. Over the past, I think, 8 years, I've been taking 3 Mexican-American children to safety swim in Riverhead to be sure they learn to swim. And the Star Aqua Center will ensure that all our children learn to protect themselves in and near the water. And I hope you too will support this long overdue project. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Chris Gallo?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi,
Yeah.
good evening, everyone. I'd like to piggyback off the last 2 speakers. I am very, very excited about the prospect of this indoor pool. My address is 9 Pineview Lane, Hampton Bays. I am a lifelong swimmer, lifeguard, triathlete, and of course the children, I believe, are the strongest point in having this pool built. We live in a coastal community where we have bays and ocean all around us, and we need to have a place to teach the children how to swim. That is the most important. I'd like to add a little bit more about seniors. I've worked in many pools. I have swam in many pools. I'm on a master swim team, and I can't tell you the amount of seniors that come to a pool at 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm talking about people in their 70s, 80s, 90s who swim every day. And they swim because they either swim or they walk in the pool, and it's good for their joints. There's no other exercise like swimming, especially for people who have issues with knees, joints, anything like that. I'll just share a quick story with you. I met a woman named Ruth who lost her husband early in COVID. And I would say she's in her early 90s, if not late 80s. She told me one day that the pool is her lifeline. She comes every single morning, no matter what the weather is, She walks in the pool, she swims a little bit, and it's also her social life. She told me that there are days she does not have any other contact with anyone else but the people she's met at the pool and the community that has just developed over the years of swimming in the mornings with people. She talks to them in the locker room, and it's just a wonderful thing to see. And I really hope that for everyone that this pool does get built. Thank you.
Thank you. Therese Wildrick? Therese? How about
Got Lath.
Lath McLaughlin?
Lath.
You're muted. Excuse me. Can you unmute her, Charles?
This is Therese Wildrick. I'm sorry, I just realized I was muted. So when you're ready, I'll be ready to speak.
All right, we'll take you first. And Charles, can you communicate with?
Doing what I can.
All right, Therese, please.
Okay, thank you. Hi, I'm Therese Wildrick. I live at 8 Squires Lane in Hampton Bays. And I heartily support everything the previous speakers have said. I think that having a pool for our community would be a huge asset for, as Tony said, everybody from the little kids, the mommy and me classes, through seniors, and how the opportunity for the students in Hampton Bays, West Hampton, and Southampton to be on a swim team that opens up opportunities for scholarships. It provides an opportunity to become a lifeguard, earn some income. All the lifeguards I know, many of them have been doing it for many years, and it's a significant part of their lives. Seniors definitely use a pool. It's runners become swimmers. When the joints start to go, the pool is the best place for swimmers to be. We really need this pool. It's a huge gap in what our community has to offer. And as far as the traffic goes, we have had a traffic study done that shows that the membership traffic for the facility would be less than 2% of the people on the road. And at least half of those people would already be on the road running other errands. Another point about that is that there's a significant number of people from Hampton Bays who commute to East Hampton to swim at the Y. There would actually be less traffic on the road if those people only had to go to Southampton. And even so, more people going in the opposite direction. It would be a lot less driving, a lot less traffic if we had a pool conveniently located.
Okay.
So thank you very much.
Thank
and
you.
I really hope that this can be approved in a timely manner.
Thank you.
We're trying to get Lath McLaughlin. Okay.
There, she's unmuted. Okay.
Okay, it's Leith McLaughlin's computer, but it's Frances Genovese who's requested to speak.
Ah, okay, Francis.
Okay. I don't know where to start, I must say, but in answer just quickly to the last 2 or 3 people who have commented on how necessary this is for older people with bad knees and everything else, and for it to be close to them. Why then did they not come out when this pool was proposed for Hampton Bays? Why is it now the thing they want in Southampton? But at any rate, let me start where I wanted to. I'm going to ask that this pre-submission conference is premature because the application has been cloudy and ambiguous from the beginning. Number one, in November of 2020, the town board required the pool, the Star Aquatic, Miss DiVincenzi particularly, to report on her fundraising. To date, she has never reported except to make comments that she's got 6-figure donations. I have foiled the town repeatedly, and the town's response is always the same. There is no documentation of her fundraising. So we have no idea what kind of liability she's planning for the community. The other thing is that this property was bought with a lot of great comments about an opportunity for open space. Open space was the main reason to buy this property, to calm traffic and open space more and more. And then it immediately morphed into this project, which is a sports complex that has very, very, very little to do with teaching children how to swim. The land that it's on is 1 acre zoning. The Suffolk County Water Authority says it is zone 5. It has made provisions for other properties in the neighborhood, put limitations on them because they were zone 5. Nobody is discussing this. This should not be for pre-submission. This should be nowhere near the point it is. It is my contention, I've said it in print, that these people are front runners for Midwestern huge theme park pool developers. What you have here is a 2-story thing. The ugliness of the building is breathtaking. The inappropriateness of the building is also breathtaking. As for all of the traffic experts that are giving their views tonight, number one, it's not just the pool people who are on the road. All of the streets surrounding that site are now gridlocked. The site is now feeders from the highway to Hill Street. This will increase. We can't take another car, let alone 160 parking spaces in that spot. So I am saying to you that environmentally, this is a disaster. Financially, it's murky. And it also counters the intent of what the property was purchased for. And the other issue is why, when it was purchased, and Mr. Morrow, who wanted to build a shopping center there, was denied that, why he was made whole by the supervisor of this town. He was paid exactly the same amount of money from the CPF fund that he had allotted to build a shopping center, and he was allowed to maintain a parcel there that was not included when they purchased this site. They allowed him to keep that strip, which gives him the right to ingress and exit. This is to even consider this for pre-submission now is premature. And also, where does it follow? This is an event center. It's a mishmash. It is possibly one of the ugliest buildings that I have ever seen in an area that's being destroyed by ugly buildings. This one takes the cake. It's ugly and inappropriate. I will submit written comments, but I'm asking you to not move forward, even with a vote for pre-submission. This thing should be denied on its face and will have to be accountable at some point. Ms. DiVincenzi, who runs this project, attested to the fact that she wants to follow the East Hampton YMCA model. The East Hampton YMCA, before it was the East Hampton YMCA pool, was the East Hampton Rec Center. It went belly up. Schneiderman knows that. He was the supervisor, and the town was left with a huge bill. So I think it's also very premature to discuss the kinds of lighting and what's sustainable and everything else. This is an excrescence. It's wrong, it's ugly, and we are going to fight it. First thing, let's see how much money is in the pot. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that I've called on everybody who is on the screen. So any closing statements?
I have one more.
You have one more? Alfred Callahan?
Yes, hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Hello, my name is Alfred Callahan. I'm on Winter Way in Southampton. I don't have video just because I am sitting in my car in my driveway.
Okay,
So I'm not sure if my internet would take it. I am the chief of Southampton Fire Department. I'm also an EMT with the village ambulance. I'm also a 911 dispatcher for the village, and I run the training program for the fire rescue swimmers. I say all that just because I've had an opportunity over the years to see how emergencies out here unfold from the very beginning call to the resolution and hospital care. Unfortunately, one of the major components of all of our incidents revolve around the fact that most of our victims are victims who do not know how to swim. It's disheartening to know that a lot of these incidents can be solved with swimming education, from having the appreciation for the dangers of the water that surrounds us all year long, not just during the summer. And a facility like this is something that we need just to provide that basic education to our children. I have 3 daughters, 6 and under. I have a 4th daughter coming. I can't stress the importance of them learning how to swim. Now, I'm fortunate enough to have a pool where my daughters take swim lessons twice a week during the summer. But then even during the off season, between the 2 warmer seasons, the regression of their skills and their comfort in the water is very noticeable. So I know there's a lot of discussions on this is not the place, this is the place, or the traffic. I live right by PC Richards. Sometimes it takes me almost 25 minutes to get home from 7-Eleven. So I do appreciate the traffic out here. But I think there's going to be a lot of times where this is going to be a not in my backyard situation. A lot of people don't want the traffic or the facility or the crowds it would bring. But I think the main thing to look at is, do the needs of a facility like this overrule the concerns for some traffic and the appeal of the building? And I want to say that it certainly does meet the needs of this community. I run the fire department rescue swimmer program every year. I run it out of my backyard to my wife's complete pleasure, only because I do not have a facility to train fire department rescue swimmers other than my pool and then bring them down to the ocean. So to have a facility that we could use throughout the year, not just during the summer season, a facility for children to learn how to swim and appreciate the water, the dangers of the water and how to handle that effectively. A facility for adults who might never have learned how to swim to be able to get into water comfortably throughout the year and with the lifeguards present in a controlled environment is just something this community does not have. And I really feel that we need, and I think it would help both our community members, our rescuers, our visitors, and it would help the economy, bring some people into town, sure, but I don't think it's going to be that as much of an increase as some of the concerns been raised. But I'm not an expert in any of that. I'm just speaking on the part that our incidents that we respond to are preventable. And I think that this is a major step in our community being able to prevent more incidents in the future and maybe get more people in the water, since that is what we are all about out here. So
Okay,
I appreciate your
you.
time. I appreciate you letting me speak.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Callahan. Tim, if you don't have any more comments, we'll close with a 30-day written comment period.
Motion? Motion?
Yeah, okay, but I don't know that he's saying something.
Thank you, Bert. Thank you very much. We have nothing else to say. Thank you.
Great. Okay, motion by Robin, second by Dennis, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 6 in favor, 30-day written comment period. Thank you. So we're moving on to our last agenda item, which we had adjourned from a prior public hearing. That's 325 Rose Hill Road.
You call them both, Madam Chair?
Yes, and then 5 is the Convent of the Sisters of Mercy, Lot 2.
Thank you. We do have notice of additional posting for tonight's meeting, Madam Chair.
Okay, notice is okay. And so who do we have for representative?
Brian Lucasio.
Okay, Brian Macasio. Are you here? There you are, Brian.
Good evening, members of the board. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead, please.
Okay, as you said, we were before you at the August 12th hearing. The neighbor to the north, lot 1 on the subdivision, raised a question as to whether or not he had to be a party to the application. The board decided to adjourn the hearing and allow each party to submit written submissions before September 10th deadline as to the authority, as to whether or not they have to be a party, or if you, as a board and the town, have a authority to amend the covenant and allow us to proceed with our pre-application for the subdivision. As noted in my submission on September 10th, based on the case law I found, you as a board and the interpretation of these covenants, it should be similar to contract law. It should be viewed within the 4 corners of the document and the language stated therein. And the document itself explicitly says that this amendment can be modified by a majority +1 vote following a public hearing of this board. There was no affirmative language granting each member of the subdivision a right to be a party to that. The document also says that this covenant can be enforced and shall be enforced by the planning board. It's not a covenant that you may see as like an architectural review board on a multi-lot subdivision where there's some common scheme of the grantor where he wishes to have no flat roofs or no picket fences, whereby that would be a private action, as the neighbor can bring an action against another neighbor for violating that. This was something that is almost customary in any subdivision. I review title lot, as my primary practice is transactional law, and I review declarations. And when a lot is on a subdivision, this specific language is in almost every declaration that is recorded as part of a subdivision that this town approves. And I think as an act, you are preserving your authority and your power to amend that covenant should you be so inclined. And I think the ramifications of suggesting otherwise would curtail your authority as a board. And I don't think that was the intent or is the intent of that language in the covenant. And for that reason, we would like to proceed with this hearing, and we'd like to proceed with the applications before you. I know there have been multiple submissions, some of which were just submitted today by the opposing counsel. I have not had a chance to review them because I was before you for the work session today. But again, what's before you with respect to the subdivision, it's a 2-lot subdivision in the R60 zoning. These will be conforming lots with respect to zoning. They'll be subject to all the other jurisdiction upon the process: Conservation Board, Health Department, Building Department. And again, we're looking to remove an existing large multi-unit retreat home and go with the residential zoning, which is in this area, R60 zoning of single-family dwellings. And that is the intent of the application that is submitted before you. I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm happy to go into the contents of what I've submitted before you for your consideration on the question before you.
Thank you, Brian. Any questions from the board? Is there anyone who wants to speak to the application?
Yes.
Is this Mika Strunk?
Yes.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Hi, Mika Strunk. I thought I was going to see Frank Eisler here, and I do. I'm going to let Frank go first, if that's okay with the board. And if he's ready.
Frank, are you there?
Trying to get him to put his video on.
Here he is.
Okay, Mr. Eisler?
Muted.
Okay, I'm sorry, I just unmuted. Good evening, members of the board and the public and whoever else is listening. As the board knows from our submittals.
Please identify yourself for the
I'm
record.
sorry, yes. My name is Frank Eisler. I am an attorney and a member of the firm of Smith, Finkelstein, Lumberg, Eisler, and Yakubowski at 456 Griffin Avenue. We represent 315 Rose Hill Holdings LLC. That's the owner of Lot 1 in this 2-lot subdivision. And this is the property directly to the north of the applicant's property. As we've advised the board in our September 10th submittal, we have commenced what's called a quiet title action in Supreme Court to have the courts adjudicate our position that a modification of this declaration that's recorded as to both lots 1 and 2 require the consent of both parties. We recognize that this is not a legal issue really under the purview of this board. It's really a property rights issue to be determined by the court. So we have filed a lis pendens against the property. We have served a summons and complaint both on the owner of Lot 2, and we have also named, only because of its interest as recited in the declaration, the town of Southampton. We're seeking no relief against the town, but because the declaration recites that the declaration was required it was in the interest of the town, not only the applicant and Lot 1 owner, but the town as well. So from a technical point of view, the town has been named. We submit that this is an issue of critical importance to our client, and we have requested that the board hold this hearing in abeyance to allow the matter to be adjudicated by the courts. The fact that a lis pendens or a notice of pendency is filed on this property will preclude, as a matter of law, the applicant from transferring or doing any sale of the property. So in essence, if the subdivision application were to go forward, it would be frozen as a legal matter because title cannot be transmitted while this legal challenge is in place. So we have asked the planning board to hold this in abeyance in the interest of the economy of the parties and the board, because it certainly, if we succeed in this court proceeding, the application before you tonight will be rendered moot. So we make that request of the board in the interest of expediency.
Okay, thank you. Did you need to speak, Nika? Can you unmute yourself?
I'm sorry. I have other things to say. I just did that as a preliminary statement. I do want to address some other things if the hearing is going to proceed. So I just reserve my rights to come back.
Kathleen?
Oh, sure. As we've discussed, Mr. Eisler, I appreciate your position, but in the absence of a stay pursuant to either town law or a stay issued, pursuant to a TRO from the Supreme Court, this board will proceed at this time.
Okay, if you wish to proceed, then I'd like to address a couple of things with respect to this application, if I may. First, we have submitted this evening or this afternoon, and we didn't realize we were going to be on Zoom, so we were going to provide the board with physical hard copies of a memorandum in opposition to this application that we are submitting on behalf of the owner of Lot 1. And we address some of the points that the applicant's attorney has raised in his prior letter. We really never got a chance to respond sooner because for some reason council did not copy us on the letter he submitted to the town board, although to the planning board rather, although of course we provided it to him. In any event, in my memo we submitted tonight, we point out the fallacies of some of the arguments that he is making. And one of them is the plain wording of this declaration as it speaks to the modification of its provisions. The declaration specifically states that I'm quoting from it now, it's on the last page, second to last paragraph of the declaration. It may not be annulled, waived, changed, modified, terminated, revoked, or amended by, and this is a very key word, by the owner or two more very critical words, subsequent owners, plural, of the premises. And then it goes on to say without a majority plus one vote of this board. As counsel just said in his opening remarks, the wording of the declaration has to be given its meaning as it reads. And there is no question that the plain wording of this provision that I just read contemplates that once the owner who owned the entirety conveys out lot 1 and 2, it cannot be waived or modified without the subsequent owners applying to this board. And as we submit, that obviously hasn't happened because my clients oppose this application. So I raised that legal argument for you to consider while evaluating the application. I'd like to now address what is actually a fatal flaw in the application itself. We heard counsel for the applicant at the last hearing state, and it's in the application itself, that the reason he is requesting that, or why he's seeking to justify the need to subdivide or the desire to subdivide the lot into 2 is because there's an environmental benefit that will result by the elimination of the convent use. And it is far less environmentally impactful if 2 subdivision lots are approved here. I mean, 2 lots are approved on his lot. And when you look at that argument, he's basically saying it's a trade-off. We're going to get rid of this intense use in exchange for 2 single-family homes, which are less impactful. There's a major problem with that argument. And Nika Strunk has provided you with a letter. She has done hours of review of the planning board's files and the prior approvals that have been given to this property. And I'm going to defer to her to give that full report to you when she speaks. But the key element here is that convent is a permitted use under your zoning code by virtue of a special permit that was issued to it in its capacity. And I'm reading from the code, and this is section 330-10, sub listing B paren 1, and this is your table of use regulations. It has a special permit to operate on lot number 2 because it's a church or similar place of worship or religious instruction, parish house, rectory, seminary, or convent. Those are the permitted uses that the property can be put to under the special permit that exists for lot 2. The applicant bought this property. The applicant is not a church, a similar place of worship. It's not providing religious instruction. It's not a parish house, rectory, seminary, or convent. In order to be a convent there, it must be owned by a religious organization. And we've heard no claim, and we believe there's none, that this applicant falls into that category. So what does that mean? What that means is that the minute the applicant purchased lot 2, the special permit and the right to use the property as a convent ended as a matter of zoning under your code. This property cannot be now operated as a convent. as it had been when the nuns occupied it, because there is no longer a special permit that meets this use. As a result of this, the argument that is being put forward by the applicant that we're giving you a benefit, town, by removing this large structure and its potential impacts on groundwater or wetlands and replacing it with two more benign uses is a red herring. He's giving up nothing. The property cannot be used as an active convent any further. The building can be used as a single family residence if he wishes to do that, or his client does, or the applicant does, but there's no trade-off here. The whole and sole rationale for this applicant coming before you is that I know it says we can't further subdivide, but under these circumstances where we are getting rid of and voluntarily doing it, getting rid of this use, this intense use, please give me a subdivision that will allow me to have 2 lots. It's simply not what they're doing. They're offering you nothing. And we submit that in order for the board to modify this recorded warranty and this restriction of the property, there must be a compelling, serious reason to deviate from the restriction that was placed on it before. And there's no reason here because you've already gotten the remedy of being rid of this intense use that was of concern. If you're going to evaluate the environmental benefit and compare it, you're certainly going to have a lesser environmental impact by having a single family house on this property as it's zoned for and as it's restricted under this declaration than having 2. So if we're concerned about eliminating potential environmental impacts, this applicant should be entitled to build or convert the existing building into a single estate-sized residential property, just like Lot 1 is. And if that's the only rationale that has come before you to take this drastic remedy of amending this declaration is environmental protection of the property, then it's being accomplished by denying this application because you're going to only have 1 single family house on it as opposed to 2. So that we submit is a fundamental reason why this application should not be granted. You're not getting any benefits from the abandonment of this use that can simply not be continued because it would violate zoning if it continued. One last point I'm going to make now, and I'll respectfully refer you to my submittal for all the other arguments that are in it, but I just want to bring the last point out before I stop talking. And that is, regardless of whether or not the consent of my client is needed as a matter of law for this application, he has rights as a property owner that is subject to this declaration. And as I said at our prior session, both parcels are burdened and benefited by this restriction on subdivision. My client, when he bought, knew he couldn't further subdivide and knew that Lot 2 couldn't subdivide and proceeded to build a substantial estate house as a single dwelling on this entire parcel, as was the restriction placed on the property. The applicant is charged with knowledge, whether he had it or didn't have it, when he purchased this property, that one was burdened by this restriction, that it could not be further subdivided. And he should have known or did know that upon buying it, the convent use was going to end, and that there would not be this basis to present in good faith an application based on this environmental theory that has been presented here. The reason I'm going through this analysis is that when you decide if you can get past the point I made about the environmental balancing and failure of the argument being raised by the applicant, if you can get past that, it is imperative we submit that the board balance the equities of the two property owners here, regardless of whether we have the right to consent or not. And when you balance the equities, you have an applicant who came before you who should be charged with knowledge of everything I just said. And it is imperative that that be considered and that our clients' rights and property be preserved. I appreciate that. If anyone has any questions for me, I'll be happy to entertain them or try to respond. Otherwise, I will try to find the mute button and, oh, here it is, and go let Nika talk, if that's acceptable.
Yes,
Anyone have
that's
questions for me? Okay, I'm going to move.
A small question. You stated repeatedly that when this applicant purchased the property, the convent use was extinguished. But yet you have a 65 room dormitory facility permitted and C of O'd. Have your clients contemplated repurposing or alternate uses that structure could to accommodate? I mean, it's wishful thinking to think that someone's going to come and convert it into a single family house, but in reality, it's a dormitory. So have your clients ever considered the possible future uses of that dormitory, whether it be workforce housing, youth hostel, maybe a nonprofit acquires it and to use it as a homeless shelter? I'm just wondering what they envision for that facility.
Are you asking me that question?
Yes. Have you had that discussion with your client?
I don't quite understand your question, because the structure, first of all, it's not a 60-room structure anymore. That used to be on our property, was demolished at the time the subdivision that created lots 1 and 2 were granted. The existing structure is on the applicant's property, and I believe it has 40 rooms or so. And what he has represented to the board is that they're going to demolish it,
right,
and build a single family house, which he has an absolute right to do. The argument I'm making and presented, and I'll defer to Nika to go into more detail on it, is that use that's permitted there. Yes, there's a CO for that building based on a special permit. And the special permit is specifically tied to a designated use that no longer exists. And you can't then rezone the property by fiat. You have to either bring in another party that's going to be a religious institution that wants to operate the structure as a convent or a retreat, a religious school, whatever you wish. But you can't argue that I'm getting rid of it and therefore we're getting an environmental benefit by your giving me 2 houses on this parcel.
Okay, Ms. Strunk, you're up.
Thank you. Good evening, members of the board. Nika Strunk, Nika B. Strunk PLLC, 37 Windmill Lane, Southampton, New York, for Larry and Lori Schloss, who are directly south of the applicant's property. Their house is at 383 and 395 Rose Hill Road. Just as an initial matter, I did write to the board yesterday because in the course of reviewing the planning board's very voluminous files on this site that go back into the 1990s, I was going through all the FOIL documents that I had, and I came across the open government disclosure form for this application, the current application, and it's not fully completed. And it must be fully completed before this board can hear this application. I don't know where that stands. I sent Mr. Locascio a copy of my letter. I don't know if he's.
If I may, counsel, Mr. Locascio did submit a complete form today. I did not have the opportunity to get that off my email because we were in a work session all day today. And we can certainly make sure you get a copy of that first thing tomorrow morning.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. All right, now going on to the, I did submit another letter, which I'm sure no one has looked at because it was this afternoon. The points, and these are, following up on the points that Mr. Eisler made. Really, the premise here is that there is a building that was approved for a 40 occupant religious retreat for a convent. Now, that was approved, and I have submitted many of the underlying documents from the Suffolk County Health Department, which granted a variance, and this board, which issued site plan approval and subdivision approval and a wetlands permit. All of this was predicated on the foundation that a religious convent is a permitted use in this zoning district. So now unless the applicant says that they're interested in operating a religious retreat, that's the specific use that's been approved. There is this is a retreat house. It's also been greatly exaggerated what this approval is by the applicant. The applicant has said that it's a 65-bedroom structure. It is not. There was a 65-bedroom structure on originally what is now Lot 1, and that was demolished as part of this application. There's a narrative about it throughout the planning board's files. And it was what was built in its place is the current building, which I understand is in bad disrepair, which is for a maximum of 40 occupants and has, according to the town's mass appraisal information on its GIS site, 20 bedrooms and 10 bathrooms. So the idea that this is a 65-bedroom structure or existing use is incorrect. That's not what it is. Obviously, 40 occupants is 40 occupants. That's what it was permitted to be at its maximum capacity. But it is not, it was specifically for religious purposes. And so as far as Mr. Finnerty's question, which I understood entirely, if you have a room that was designed for multiple residents, you have a building that was designed for multiple residents, then what are you going to do with that building? Well, I don't think you could convert it to a multifamily use because that is not permitted in this district, in this zoning district. I think you would have to get a change of zone from the town board to do that. That's not where we are. We're not in that board. We're in the planning board. So I think the planning board has to deal with realistic uses that are permitted under zoning and not hypothetical uses that could potentially be converted if the planning board granted a change of zone for this property. So just moving on, I agree with Mr. Eisler, the way he said it. I mean, if there were a religious use here, yes, I think you could continue to operate as a retreat house. That's what the CO says, a retreat house for a maximum of 40 occupants. But failing that, the permitted use is a single family home, same as all of the other properties in this entire district. So then the question becomes, and this was also touched on by Mr. Eisler, is it true that by turning this property into 2 residential lots, you will be significantly, improving the environmental situation on this property. And again, I think this has been really overstated and exaggerated because among other things, the existing structure is very, very far from wetlands. It's like 400 feet from wetlands. And I think actually, would it be possible to display the subdivision map, which shows the location of the existing structure and its sanitary system?
Doing it, Matt.
Would you? Thank you. Okay. Great, thank you. So if you look carefully here, you see the retreat house, and you can see the 200-foot wetlands jurisdiction setback. Maybe it's 300 feet, maybe it's 350 feet, but it's this building is far from the wetlands. It's situated on a upland portion of the property. It's well outside wetlands jurisdiction. And its sanitary system is located on the west side of the building. Now, obviously, I understand the benefits of a modern sanitary system and a smaller sanitary system, but I think it was established at the last hearing that this sanitary system has not been used to capacity, and certainly not in the last years when my clients have been living next door. And it looks to me to be about 400 feet from the wetlands. If you were to do what the applicant is asking you to do and subdivide this property into 2 residential building lots, you're going to, by necessity, have a new house much, much closer to the wetlands, much closer to Hayground Bay, and a new sanitary system for that house, much closer to the wetlands and closer to Hayground Bay than the existing. So I don't see how there is any overall environmental improvement by this application. And I think that this application was really sold as, an environmental boon, and that was not accurate because it was sold under the premise that a 65-bedroom use could continue on this property. And that's simply not the case. I think that's how it was sold to the Conservation Board, which supported it on an environmental basis. And I think that premise was incorrect. And I think that also this applicant has shown that it's not particularly abiding by environmental regulations. It's already cleared a massive amount of wetlands vegetation and vegetation within a scenic and conservation easement that was imposed by this board on its last go around on this property in 1997. So there is and I've provided a copy of the conservation easement. You can see it on the map. It provides that no vegetation may be removed, killed, destroyed, cut, or removed therefrom. That's already been done by this applicant. So I don't see how you can really credit the argument that this is going to be an overall benefit to Hayground Bay and to the wetlands by allowing this applicant to come in, create a new building lot, massively expand the development footprint of this property, and create an additional house and sanitary system and all that goes with it. There's no way it can be done on this lot. What needs to happen is that this remains a single lot. It has an excellent, if the applicant doesn't want to keep the existing structure, there is plenty of room for it to build a very large, beautiful house with a modern sanitary system if it wants, on the upland portion of this property and well away from wetlands. And that's really how this property should be developed. As Mr. Eisler said, there was no reasonable expectation when this property was purchased that a subdivision would be permitted, particularly, obviously, in light of the covenant that said no further subdivision. So those are my points. Let me just make sure I haven't missed anything. No, I mean, I think that that's really the bottom line.
Great, thank you. Matt, can you take that down?
Madam Chair, may I ask a quick question of either council?
Sure.
Yes.
You know, in furtherance of Member Finnerty's comment, I'm just curious, in this R60 zone, some permitted uses by special exception include a condo or co-op, a school, a yacht club, a hospice facility that arguably could fall into this structure. What are your comments as it relates to that?
Well, I think if this applicant was seeking to convert this to a condo or a co-op, it would have an entirely different process to go under the town code, and I would have to research those specific.
Understood. But as it relates to other conforming uses, for example, a hospice facility, or, you know, those are permitted by special exception, but as it relates to the covenant, you know, what if any position do you have for that?
As it relates to the covenant, I'm not sure how.
Either the covenant or the proposed subdivision.
Well, I mean, I don't think that we've heard the applicant say that it intends to run this property as a hospice or a school. I mean,
I understand that, counsel. Okay, I understand. One other question I'd like to ask, notwithstanding the covenant, and I appreciate that's a difficult question, but notwithstanding the covenant language, would you agree that this subdivision would be otherwise as of right in the R60 zoning district?
I mean, I think that Mr. Eisler's property can likewise, under zoning, be subdivided. However, I think that there's a reason that this planning board, when it does a subdivision analysis and does the kind of work and puts in the kind of time that it put in 1997 to design this property, to plan this property, there's a reason why it says no further subdivision. And I think that reason, nothing has changed. That reason abides and it continues. And there's nothing that has changed that would make that planning decision any different today. And the applicant hasn't shown that.
Okay, so.
I think Mr. Eisler would like to be heard on that, Madam Chair.
Mr. Eisler's.
Would it be okay to be heard on that? There's a very important point here, in addition, that when the applicant presented last time, and if you go back to your video and watch it, he made the point that the subdivision prohibition was really focused on his property. And he never talked about it being applicable to both lots. Certainly it is, there's no question. But the argument was, well, it's, you know, it was really put on because of the convent being there. Well, the fact of the matter is my property, my client's property is certainly subject to it as well. And the reason for that was to preserve the nature of those two lots in the area they're located. As Nika's client spoke to the board last time, the entire stretch of land going south along the water is comprised of lots like this. And that's one of the reasons, I'm sure, that both lots 1 and 2 were prohibited from further subdivision. Just one other comment about the building and the property owner's headache with this building potentially. This is a self-created issue by this applicant. He bought this property in the condition it's in, with the legal parameters that apply to it, with the zoning that applies to it. I don't think it's the function of a municipal board to try to find a way for this person to get relief from his own decisions. And he bought this property for a substantial sum of money and can use it as a full-fledged estate house in conformity with the area, the zoning, and this declaration. It will require removal of the building, but his attorney already told you last time they intend to take it down. So that's a non-issue as well. The application here is filled with red herrings that are simply, when examined, don't stand up to light. So I thank you, and I apologize for taking too much of your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a few points I'd like to.
Go ahead, Brian.
Thank you. First off, I will concede that I did overstate the number of bedrooms, and I do apologize for that. In my review of title and the CNRs, that the certificate of occupancy that's linked to this property on GIS and what I saw in the town file, it noted the 60 bedroom. I mean, either way, we're still having the same conversation, whether it's 40 or 60 bedrooms, but I will acknowledge that for the record. As to Mr. Eisler's point, as defined with the plain language of the document, I'll use his very same argument against him. The owner or subsequent owners. We are one of these subsequent owners. It doesn't say owner or all of these subsequent owners. It doesn't qualify all of them. It just says owner or subsequent owners. It was being subdivided. There would be multiple owners. Yes, we had knowledge of the covenant. Yes, we knew we were buying a large multi-room room structure. We did not want to come in here with an aggressive application that suggests we have all of these rights and we're going to come in here and threaten the neighborhood with an aggressive use, because that's not the intent of the applicant. He wanted to be a good neighbor. He came forthcoming with what his intentions were if you were so inclined to amend the covenant and allow us to proceed with the subdivision. We're well aware of the opportunities that this building affords us and what we can do with it. But we didn't think that was appropriate at this point to dangle that carrot, because we don't want to come in here attempting to strong arm the neighbors. We came in following the language that was set forth under the declaration to seek a public hearing, majority +1 approval of the covenant, then to go through the planning board process to allow you as a board the power granted to you to view the merits of the subdivision and, if appropriate, grant us approval. As to the point Nika raised on the environmental impacts, if you don't need to pull up the map, but there's an existing pool just approximately 100 feet outside of the wetlands. We would not be able to reconstruct that pool. There is a conforming building envelope located outside of the 200-foot setback. So we're well aware of the parameters. The lots were configured in a way to meet all the respective zoning and conservation setbacks. I can't speak to whether or not the property was cleared, but of course, if any building permit were to be issued subsequent to the approval on this process going out, as we applied, we would have to restore that buffer, and we would be subject to Conservation Board as well as the Planning Board. We're well aware of that, and we're by no means looking to subject that, we have some way to undercut the environmental concerns of this lot. Again, I think it's just important that you guys understand that what was granted under this declaration was at your authority, if you're so inclined to, after a public hearing, amend the declaration. We're here before you requesting that relief so we can proceed with a subdivision application. Any suggestion that we are unilaterally demolishing the structure, that was never implied. We said upon approval, we would be demolishing, but we have no application for a demo permit, no actions have been made to demolish or discontinue the use of the structure. Now I'm happy to answer any other questions the board may have with respect to the application.
Any questions from the board? So hearing none, we're going to close with a 30-day written comment period.
Ma'am, I had my hand up. I just wanted to make one more brief comment, if you'll allow me.
Sure.
Thank you. Sorry, I know, I'm sure you don't want to hear from me more. I just, very briefly, the covenant says owner or owners of the premises. The premises are defined in schedules attached to the covenant. Premises includes lot 1 and lot 2. It's not 40 rooms, it's 20 rooms, 10 bathrooms. At the last public hearing, Mr. LaCasio.
41, actually, the applicant was at the property today and counted. So
Great,
there's
21.
40.
I'm glad to be corrected. I went by the
Yep.
mass appraisal.
Okay.
At the last application, the applicant's attorney said that wetlands permits would be needed because the improvements would be 150 feet from the wetlands. Now, maybe there's a different proposal, but certainly looked to me from that map that you would need to be 150 feet from the wetlands if you're going to build the type of house that people build in this area on that second lot. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll entertain a motion to close with a 30-day written comment period by Gloria, second by Dennis. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 6 in favor. Thank you. Thank you for coming and giving your
Good evening. Thank you for
comments.
your time,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you, Brian. Entertain a motion to adjourn by Zuccarelli, second by Gloria. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, extension,